Hello everyone. So I noticed that some students are still confused about creating grouped frequency distribution tables. Besides, I just got a tip from one of my students who showed me how to use the COUNTIFs correctly to populate. I will show you that trick in this video. I will also explain the important details that you will need to know in order to get a successful group frequency distribution table. So the first step, I want you to find the minimum and I want you to find the maximum. The reason why we find the minimum and maximum is because we need to, first of all, determine the lower class limit of the first class. Second, we want to find the range, because with the range we can find a nice class width. So I'm going to use the function min to find the minimum, and then select my data. So my minimum is 289 and my maximum using the max function is going to be 475. I'm going to find the range. The range is basically the maximum minus the minimum. And then from the range I will find the class width. So the class width is going to be equal to the range divided by the number of classes. In my question it says choose 10 classes, so I'm going to choose 10 classes. We usually choose 10 or more classes, not more than 30, not less than 10 is a good option. 5 is okay, but sometimes that's just going to create a bunch of data, so we stick to a nice number, which is 10 to 30. All right, so now I have the class width. Here's how you are going to find a nice class width, because this is not a nice class width. First of all, you're always going to round up your number. So even if you get 18.1, you still need to round up your number. Meaning 18.1, round it up. It's not going to be 19. 19 is not a nice number. I'm looking for a nice number. Usually a nice number is a multiple of 10. If a multiple of 10 is not a good option in your case, depending on the set of data you have, you tried it and it didn't work, then go with multiples of 5. These are nice numbers. So the closest number to 18 is 20. That is rounded up. It's bigger than the class width I got here, and it is a multiple of 10. So that's how I round up. I usually round to the nearest 10, which is, in my case, it's 20. Now that I created the class width, it's a nice class width, I'm going to start creating the group frequency distribution table. I'm going to say lower class limit, LC, and upper class limit, UC. And I want 10 classes. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and then I will copy that pattern and then drag it down. Now I have 10. I need 11. So I'm going to, this is just an index for my classes to tell me where to stop. Now the dilemma is to create the lower class limit. The lower class limit of the first class is basically, you're going to follow this rule. You're going to say, it's going to be either the minimum or it is a number less than the minimum. It has to be a multiple of the class width, the nice class width you chose. So let me try the minimum. If it's a multiple of 20, that means if I divide the minimum by 20, it's not going to give me decimals. So I'm going to say minimum divided by 20. The answer is 14.45. So this is not going to be a multiple of 20. So the minimum cannot be the lower class limit of the first class. I can see and I can tell right away that 280 is actually a multiple of 20, because 14 times 20 equals to 280. Let me prove it to you. So 280 divided by 20 is equal to 14. So I don't have any decimals here, and that means 280 is a multiple of 20, and that's what I need. So the number that I'm going to begin with is a number that is less than the minimum, and it is a multiple of 20, and in my case it was 280. Now to find the rest of the table, you're going to say, okay, 280 plus the class width is going to give me the lower class limit of the second class. So this number is going to be 280 plus 20. Now here is a formula that I can copy down. So I did that. To find the upper class limit of the first class, we know that we need to subtract 1 unit. 1 unit is going to depend on the number that you have. In my case, I have 3-digit number with no decimals. So 1 unit is going to be the number 1. If you have a 4-digit number with no decimals, then your unit is going to be different. It is going to be 10. If you have a number with 1 decimal place, then your unit is going to be 0.1 or 1/10. If your number has 2 decimal places, or any of your numbers have 2 decimal places, then your unit is going to be 100th or 0.01, and etc. I hope that you got the idea of 1 unit. So I'm going to take the lower limit of the second class and subtract 1 unit. In my case, it's 1 because I have 3 digits. Now enter. If you have 4 digits, you're going to subtract 10. Or if you have 4 or more digits, then you're going to subtract 10 as a unit. Okay, so I'm going to populate. Now that I created the upper class limit and the lower class limit, all I need to do is to find the frequencies. So to find the frequencies, I need the upper class limit. This is one method. Another method, I can use COUNTIFs. So let me show you the first method, which is using COUNTIFs with the tip and the trick that one of my students shared with me. So COUNTIFs. The reason why we use COUNTIFs in this case, because we have a lower limit and upper limit, so we need 2 criterias in this case. So we're going to use the class limit. We're going to use the class limits as criterias. It's asking about the criteria range, so I'm going to select my data, and I need to lock it in place, Fn, F4. So I click Fn first and then F4. If you are on Mac, it's going to be Command T. So now that I selected the first one, the criteria, I want everything that is greater than or equal to the lower class limit, which is 280. So how to do that? I'm going to start with quotation to put the condition inside of the quotation. Greater than or equal to, close quotation, Shift 7 to put the AND symbol, and then click on the lower class limit of the first class, comma, select the range again, lock it in place, Fn, F4, Command T, comma. I want everything that is less than or equal to the upper class limit. So that is less than or equal to, between quotation marks, Shift 7, and click on the upper class limit of the second class. Close that and enter. So here is the first frequency, and then I can populate the rest. I'm going to delete the last number right here because I don't need it, and this one is not needed either. Now this is one method to find frequency. If you have the data analysis tool and you are able to obtain the data analysis tool, then the second method is probably going to be a little bit easier. So what we need for that is we need the upper class limit. To make sure that the upper class limit is all numbers, because if you click here, you'll see that it has a formula. So I don't need the formula. I'm going to turn these into numbers. The way to do that, you're going to select it and then copy it and right click and paste it in place as value. So this is important because it's not going to work if you keep it as formulas. Now, I want to, this is going to count as my bin range, by the way. So either you keep it here or you copy it in a different place. It doesn't really matter. Go to the data analysis tool, select histogram and click OK. Your range is going to be this data, the raw data. And then your bin range is going to be the upper class limit. And then the output range, make sure you select an empty cell, one cell, and make sure you select the last chart output and then click OK. You see here I had the same frequency, so I can just cut that and I can just paste it right here. So I have the frequencies. If you compare your numbers, you have the same exact numbers. So either way is going to work. The nice thing about this one is it's going to show you a histogram, a little histogram here. Just because I copied and pasted the frequency, that's why it was, the histogram just disappeared because I messed up with the data that's feeding it. But before I cut this, actually you could see that you have a nice histogram. Now this is a way to create a histogram, and you can make it look like a histogram actually by double clicking on the bars, because you want them to be touching, and then make sure that the histogram icon is selected, and then close the gap by turning it into 0. Notice how it looks like a solid one, so I'm going to click on the bucket to change the fill to a different color. That is going to give it a little bit definition, and you can see it better. You can click on the border and change the color of the border to another color, so the bars can clearly show nicely. You see here in the histogram that we generate, the numbers at the bottom represent the upper class limit. They don't represent the lower class limit, because that's our bin range basically. So to find the class width, you can subtract 2 consecutive numbers, and that will give you the class width that you need. So hopefully this video clarified some misunderstandings, and hopefully it showed you how to do group frequency distribution tables more efficiently on Excel. If you have any questions, let me know.